portraying an infantryman at the Presidio La Bahia in Goliad, Texas, at the time period of the Texas Revolution of 1836, specifically in the Spring Campaign. Most of the soldiers under Fannon's command at Presidio La Bahia were recent American immigrants who came to Texas as volunteers to fight for Texas independence. So as you can imagine, they were recently supplied in the United States and came here often with rifles, since many were from the upper South of Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, where many of the people still hunted and trapped every day. And when they served in the local militias, they often brought their civilian rifles with them. So the rifle that I have, that many of those had at the time, is called a Flintlock. It has a piece of flint, a piece of steel, and the frizzen that creates the spark that ignites the rifle. It's a Flintlock. It is a rifle, which means the barrel is grooved such that when the bullet comes out, it spins and creates a more accurate and longer distanced firing weapon. But it also makes it slower and harder to load. So sometimes the military musket that's smoothbore is better for soldiers in battle because it can be loaded faster, and it was also fitted with a bayonet that could be used as a defensive or offensive weapon when you were no longer loaded. So the rifle I have is a style made in Pennsylvania and into the frontier in Kentucky and Tennessee of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Fairly plain as some of them go, but it's the sort of thing that many families would have had in their house for hunting and for home defense. Nothing really special about it. It's 50 caliber, and whereas military soldiers often fired paper cartridges from leather cartridge boxes, most civilians were using a hunting pouch for their bullets and accessories, and a cow's horn or powder horn for the gunpowder. So in a campaign like Fannon's troops here at Goliad, they might be issued paper cartridges, which they would keep in their hunting pouches, but hunting or other things, they might be loading from the powder horn, often using a measure of some sort. This one's made out of river cane, and you pour the gunpowder into your measure, which is kind of pre-fit for your caliber of rifle. You'd have to then pour the powder into the rifle, take a patched ball, so you'll often have some linen or fabric patching in your pouch, along with a round ball that you'd put in there, and then using the ramrod, seat the rifle ball down at the breech, as they called it, and return the ramrod. If you don't return the ramrod, you fire it away. It's not much good for you after that. And then lastly, take a little more of the gunpowder from your powder horn and use it as priming in the pan closed by the frizzen, and then you're ready to fire. So a rifle like this doesn't load as fast as a military musket. You'd be lucky to get 3 rounds in a minute, or probably can't. You can get 3 rounds in a minute and 20 seconds, maybe something like that, whereas 3 rounds a minute is the standard for a musket's rate of fire. So in addition to the hunting pouch, the powder horn, really everything you need to load and fire the rifle should be in that. So just as the soldier has a cartridge box for his rounds, the civilians who join the Army might come with a hunting pouch and powder horn. So that's pretty much the military side of it. But most of the soldier's day was not spent fighting or even drilling. Most of it was spent in camp, and so he might have on his back a knapsack, and in that would be all of his personal effects and food and various things that he needs. And of course, soldiers need water. They get thirsty. And here in Texas, very commonly, the canteens that came here were kind of leaky and expensive, hard to come by. So often a bottle gourd, would be dried and scraped out and made into a water container that's very effective here in Texas. And you see those very commonly. So I'm dressed much like a citizen of the United States, a civilian of the South, in what would be considered ready-made clothes of the time. And they include a pair of trousers that are narrow fall fronted trousers. I have on a shirt that you may not be able to see, a vest that you can't see, but striped linen, maybe you can see that, striped linen vest, and then a roundabout jacket, which is a waist-length jacket, very common for the working classes, for laboring classes in the South. in cotton in summertime and in various wool kinds of fibers in the wintertime. So a lot of my clothes are a combination of cotton and wool, called variously. If it's an equal amount of cotton and wool on the face, 1 to 1, it was called plains or linsey woolsey, the linen being replaced by cotton in this case, linsey woolsey. If there was more cotton on the face, it might be called it's a twill weave, and it's called a jeans, which is what this is, a wool and cotton mixed jeans. If you have 75% wool and only 25% cotton showing in the front, it's called a satinette, and that's what this jacket is made from, where it shows among the cheap cotton-based fibers, it shows the most wool to the surface to make it look the most like a more expensive woolen coat. Blue being very common for the top, and tan to dust to drab for the bottom, very much like today's khaki pants and blue blazers. Was still a color combination 200 years ago that was very popular. So, you know, the civilian clothes like this would be worn often when they joined a militia company or a volunteer company coming to Texas, but also these same clothes, as I said, were ready-made. They were made in Philadelphia, New York for the Western trade, and they'd be shipped by the thousands to places like New Orleans, where the young single tradesmen on the frontier didn't sew their own clothes, and they'd buy from the stores that bought from the suppliers in New Orleans. By this same token, a lot of enslaved African Americans on plantations were issued the similar clothes, and so the stores and distributors, the wholesalers in New Orleans would have those in huge quantity. So when the companies were raising volunteers to move to Texas to fight in the war for Texas independence, they had no further to go than New Orleans, and there were these hundreds and hundreds of roundabouts and trousers already in inventory. They didn't have to make up militia uniforms. They didn't have to wait for tailors to custom make clothing. They could buy them by the gross, the 144 lot, just from these suppliers in New Orleans. And so roundabouts, satinette roundabouts, jeans trousers were very commonly available, and many of the volunteers that moved with their troops here to Goliad in the spring of 1836 were wearing something very similar.